Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and welcome back to the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the Sunday and Monday games in the NFL for Week 17. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your football picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most in football and other sports, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games in the NFL for Sunday and Monday. First up, we have the Colts and the Giants. The Colts are a big favorite on the road. Total is in the low 40s. Now, this is not a great game from an entertainment perspective, and there's going to be quite a few of those in the final 2 weeks of the season. A lot of these teams have either been eliminated from playoff contention, they've already clinched their spot, or they don't really have a realistic chance at making the postseason. For me, the Giants, we know that they've been, right now, the worst team in the NFL in terms of their record, fighting for that first overall pick in next year's draft, but I still don't think the Colts are good enough to be laying this many points on the road against any team. I mean, Indianapolis defense gave 30 points last week against the Titans of all teams, and that was a home game. So now you're on the road. I think the Giants defense does enough in this one to keep within the number. I know it's not going to be the most popular play with how bad the Giants have been in recent games, but I think New York covers the number. This is going to be a one-score win for Indianapolis, and the Giants find a cover. Next up, we have the Saints and the Raiders. This is basically a pick 'em. I see both teams favored at different books, and the total is in the high 30s, and it's one of the lower totals of the season. I think it makes sense when you look at the current state of both of these teams and their offenses. I'm going to lean towards the under. I mean, the Saints just got shut out by the Packers. It was less than 200 total yards for New Orleans, only 14 first downs. They couldn't run the football. The offensive line and Spencer Rattler really struggled. And, the Raiders, while their defense definitely not been as strong in the second half of the season as it was in the first half, I still think it's good enough to really force some fits for the Saints offensively. But on the flip side, I mean, the Raiders have not done much of anything on the offensive side of things in the last 6 weeks or so. They've been held under 20 points in all those games. Not a ton of first downs. They haven't been able to run the football. So for me, I'm going to lean towards the under in another not-so-great game. Next up, we have the Jets and the Bills. The Bills are a big favorite at home, and the total is in the mid-40s. I don't love the current state of this Bills defense right now. I mean, it's given up 28-plus first downs in its last 3 games, a lot of points and a lot of yards as well. And, a couple of those games were tough road games against good offenses, the Rams and the Lions. But just last week against the Patriots, we know Bills got off to a bad start. They gave up 28 first downs, just under 400 total yards to one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and 21 points to go with it. Now you're taking on the Jets. We know the Jets have been very disappointing this season on both sides of the ball, but particularly offensively. But in recent weeks, they put up 300-plus yards in 3 straight games, 400-plus in 2 of the last 3. I think the Jets will be able to move the ball a few times and find a few touchdown scoring drives, and the Bills can just do the rest for us to get over the number in this one. Give me the over in Jets-Bills. Next up, we have the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Eagles are a big favorite in this game, even without Jalen Hurts at quarterback. It looks like he is not going to play. Sirianni said, quote, it's going to be tough for him to make it this week, and Kenny Pickett should be the starting quarterback. And even with Kenny Pickett there, Eagles are still a touchdown favorite, and I think it makes sense. I mean, the team MVP, and at least for an offense, and maybe even the MVP of the entire league, has been Saquon Barkley for this Eagles team. I mean, he's ran the ball for about 6 yards per carry, just under 2,000 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. He's also added 31 receptions for just under 300 yards and 2 more receiving touchdowns. The Eagles should be able to run the football against the Cowboys' run defense. It's been one of the worst in the league, giving up just under 5 yards per carry this season, gave up just under 6 to the Bucs last week and over 400 yards. I think the Eagles move the ball no problem. I think Kenny Pickett will be a decent game manager, and the Eagles' defense, I think, is one of the best in the league. I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one. They get a big blowout win over their rivals. Next up, the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Bucks are a big favorite at home, and total is in the high 40s. Now, this game definitely means a lot for one team. The Tampa Bay Bucks are 8-7, tied with the Falcons at 8-7 in the NFC South. But Atlanta is right now the leader in the division because they own the tiebreaker. They swept the Bucks in the season series. But the Tampa Bay Bucks are still the betting odds favorite to win the division because they have the easier path the rest of the way. They have this game against the Panthers where they're a big favorite. They'll play the Saints next week where I imagine they'll be a big favorite as well. And the Falcons this week have to play Sunday Night Football on the road against the Commanders. The Commanders are still technically in the running for the division race in the NFC East, and Washington's a sizable favorite in that game. If Washington wins and the Bucs win this week, Tampa Bay not only in first place, but in the big-time driver's seat to win that division. So that's why Tampa Bay remains the betting odds favorite. I still think the Falcons have, I like their chances. We'll talk about it later on. I like their chances to be competitive in that game against the Commanders. But for me, Tampa Bay, I think, runs away with this one. I mean, Carolina's been a solid dog in recent weeks. We saw them last week, outright victory over the Cardinals. But Tampa Bay, this is an offense I think will still be able to move the ball at will in this game against a weak Panthers defense. I don't think the Panthers have enough answers in this game to keep up. I think we'll see Bryce Young continue to improve his game. He's definitely looked a lot better in the second half of the season than the beginning of the year when he was benched. But I still think Tampa Bay just too much for me. I see something in that 34-17 range in favor of the Bucs. Give me Tampa Bay laying the points. Next up, we'll wrap up the 1 p.m. Eastern window with the Titans and the Jaguars. This is going to be a pick'em, basically. Similar numbers that we see with the Raiders and the Saints game, and the total is in the high 30s. And for me, I'm going to lean towards Tennessee in this game. They are playing with revenge, and recently, the home team in this season series has not fared too well against the spread. The home teams were doing well, prior to 2020, but since then, they have just not been great against the number. We saw the home team in the beginning of this season series, only a couple of weeks ago, in the Titans lose outright to Jacksonville 10-6 as a favorite. So I think the Titans return to favor and win this game on the road. I do think Tennessee is a slightly better team, but we know both of these teams have really struggled in 2024. Next up, we have the Dolphins and the Browns. The Dolphins are a 6.5-point favorite on the road. Total is in the high 30s. Now, I'm recording this Friday afternoon, so right now the Dolphins are not officially eliminated from playoff contention. They're going to need a miracle, basically, to make it, but we'll see what happens. They may very well be eliminated on Friday afternoon, but this is a game where Miami is still playing a weak team, a team with a 3-12 record, and the Dolphins, we know, have benefited from their games against weak opponents, whether it's this year or especially last year. Dolphins like to beat up on bad teams. That was the case last week. It's crazy to say the Niners are a bad team, but they have just not been in great form this year, and Brock Purdy has really struggled. Miami won that game by 12 points. I think we could see a similar score in this one. The Browns, they did show a pulse, I would say, a few weeks ago. They had that upset win over the Ravens, the upset win over the Steelers in the snow. They put up 550 yards against the Broncos in a pretty good game. But now you look at the last 3 weeks, got crushed against the Steelers, crushed against the Chiefs, crushed against the Bengals, and then to get crushed by the Dolphins in this one. Give me Miami. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Minnesota Vikings, one of the better games on the board for Week 17. This should be a great game. Minnesota is the slight favorite at home right now. For me, I think Green Bay's the better team, and I like the spot for them. They're playing with revenge. They lost to the Vikings at the beginning of the season. I think Green Bay, while I don't love Jordan Love, so that's really the one thing holding me back from really going all in on the Packers for a deep run in the postseason this year. I think when you look at this team, offensive line, one of the best in the league. Their run game is very strong under Josh Jacobs and company. You got the defense, excellent against the run. Get a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They earn sacks about 9% of their opponents' plays. The secondary is very solid. If Jordan Love can do a better job at taking care of the football, watching those turnovers and interceptions, I think Green Bay is a very strong dark horse in the NFC and beyond. I think this is a team to watch out for in the playoffs, and I like their chances in this game. Similarly, with Jordan Love, I like the Vikings team, but I don't love Sam Darnold, and I think that we see the Vikings make more mistakes in this one, and it leads to a Packers victory on the road. Give me Green Bay in this game on the money line. I'm going to sprinkle Packers to win the Super Bowl as well. Next up, the Sunday Night Football game on NBC between the Falcons and the Commanders. We see the Commanders as a 4.5-point favorite. Total right now is in the high 40s. I mentioned that this is a huge game for both teams, but especially the Falcons because their season's basically on the line with the Bucs as a big favorite against Carolina. If Tampa Bay holds there, the Falcons will need to win this game to stay in first place and stay in the driver's seat in the NFC South. If they can get by this game, grab a win in this one, you got to love their chances to wrap it up with the game against Carolina at home next week. But it's going to take a lot this week. They are the dogs on the road. I still like Atlanta to at least cover the number, if not win this game outright. This Falcons defense was a big problem at the beginning of the season, which is a surprise under a defensive coach like Raheem Morris. But now you look at this team down the stretch, their defense has definitely stepped it up. Now you can definitely argue their opponents have not been great. The Giants last week, a couple weeks ago against the Raiders, but this is still definitely some positive signs for this Falcons defense. They're getting a lot more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They've had 3+ sacks in 4 straight weeks. They're better against the run. They're tackling a lot better. They had so many missed tackles at the beginning of the season. I think the Falcons defense good enough in this game to force some turnovers as well for a Commanders team that was 5 turnovers last week in Philadelphia or Washington against the Eagles. I got to go with the Falcons in this one plus the points in Sunday Night Football. Next up, we have the 49ers and the Lions on Monday Night Football. This one is going to be 8:15 Eastern on ESPN. For me, I lean towards the under. I know it's a Lions game. We got a steep total, but I think it's too steep. Lions defense is definitely banged up, but it was good enough against Chicago last week, holding the Bears to get to 17 points, forcing a couple turnovers. And the Lions' run defense has been excellent all season, giving up just less than 100 rushing yards per game. Just last week, only 60 rushing yards to the Bears. I think the Niners struggle to move the ball consistently in this game, but I do trust San Francisco's defense in this one to cause more fits than the Lions are used to seeing. And, the Lions have been able to move the ball and score against almost anybody. I think this week they do struggle a bit, especially on the road. Give me the under in Lions 49ers. And that's it. Those are the games in the NFL for Week 17. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and put those football picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.